In this lesson, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into Python strings. So the video that I'm going to do here follows along with my assignment 1.2 for my sequence of Python lessons. I've opened up the attached file that's in the Schoology page, and I've made a copy for myself. So here's my original and here's my copy. The first part of this assignment, what I'm asking you to do is you're going to add comments looking through this code, and the comments are just going to tell me what this code is doing. Okay, and as I've noted here in the comments that I gave you up front, you can look this stuff up if you prefer to read it instead of watching the video. Go to this website right here, inventwithpython.com. This is where I got the ideas for this lesson, and you can find everything you need right there just by reading. Furthermore, you can also find out what all these statements do just by running them. So maybe you remember from a previous video with PyCharm, there's a built-in debugger, and if you want to step through the code, you can do that just by clicking in the gutter here next to the first line where you want the debugger to stop. That's called a breakpoint. So I'm going to click on line 12 so that it'll stop right before it runs the first actual line of code. Then I'm going to right-click in the code and go down to hit debug. That pops up my debugger on the bottom, and remember we've got the debugger tab and the console tab. There's no output yet in the console, and there are no variables listed in the variables section of the debugger because this line 12 hasn't actually run yet. I'm going to click this button right here to step into my code. These other buttons are a little bit more advanced for multi-file projects, and frankly I don't think you're going to need them at all, and they're going to do things that you don't want to happen. So this is your favorite button for stepping through. So I'll hit that, and you'll see that we've got a new variable here called MSG1, message1, and there's a string assigned to it, and that's the one that I've already done for you where I said this is string assignment with double quotes I used here. So I'm going to run the next statement, and you'll notice here that I've got a new variable, message2, and that is also doing string assignment, but this time I used single quotes to assign the string to the variable message2. It's interesting to note, I think, that if you look carefully down here at the variables list, that you don't see double quotes on the first one and single quotes on the second one, even though that's how I coded it. Internally, the quotes are just a signal to Python that a string is coming. Okay, so internally by default it's going to use a single quote to indicate that it's a string, but you really don't need to worry about that. All you care about is that it's a string. So I'll go ahead and add my comment there, string assignment with single quotes. When you do these comments, as you step through these files, I kind of want you to try to interpret what I'm getting at. I've got two assignments coming here, lines 15 and 16. 15 creates a variable A, 16 creates a variable B. Both of those show up in my variables list, sorry. And then we've got this next line 18, and I'm asking, will this print true or false? Well, if you look at the values of these two, the variable A has a lowercase m in the beginning, and the variable B has an uppercase m. So the question is, in Python, does the double equals ask about capital letters? Is it case sensitive? So let's run that, and we'll see in the console that it outputted false. So that means that the double equals is case sensitive. These two strings are not the same value in Python when you use that double equal comparison operator. So when you're writing your comments here, right, just go ahead and try to tell me what I'm getting at. You don't need to like get super detailed about what's happening. Just say capital letters count in strings. And this prints false. Okay. Let's move on. Here I've got print. This is going to print back to the console, and that's going to take the string that's inside of A times 10. Well, what does it mean to take a string times 10? Let's find out. I'll step through that. Mountains, 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 etc. Looks like what it did is it just concatenated the string with itself 10 times in a row. So, string concatenation using the asterisk operator. That's cool. Line 22, uncomment the front of this line and see what happens when you run it. Now to do that, my debugger just skipped over that because it was commented, so I'm going to have to stop the debugger. I will go ahead and uncomment this line, and then I'm going to put a breakpoint right there. And now I will rerun the debugger. I just hit that little bug icon in the corner to start it up again. And we will step through until we get down to line 22. So, uncomment it and see what happens when I run it. So this is a string A times a string B. What does it do when you multiply two strings? Big error message. Look at all this. Traceback, that means error. Type error, can't multiply sequence by non-int. Non-int means non-integer of type string. So you can't multiply a string by a string. We just got an error. Okay, I will stop the debugger, comment that out again, and leave my new note. Not okay to multiply a string by a string. Doesn't work. Alright, I'll get rid of that breakpoint. I'm going to reset this so that it just runs down to line 25 this time. So boom, 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 we're down to line 25. Here's some examples of string indexing. Remember, string A is the word mountains. So if I say A and put the number 0 in brackets, that outputs the letter M. The number 1 in brackets outputs the letter O. 2 in brackets outputs the letter U. So what you can see happening here is that it's just taking individual characters out of the string. Takes position 0 out of the string. Big thing that I'm trying to note on this is that string indexing starts at 0. It doesn't start at 1. Let's put that in our notes. And this will go on and on down to 7. Let's just make sure that all those run normally. 6, 7 is the N. Notice I didn't go to 8. And also notice that in the word mountains there are 9 letters, but I would only have to go to index 8 to get to the S. What if I index a negative number? What happens? That gave me the S. How interesting. What if I do -2? That gave me the N. So it seems like, if you're paying attention, that when you use negative indexes, it starts from the right side of the string and counts in that direction. Negative indexes start at the right. Notice that if you use a negative index, there's really no such thing as -0. -0 equals 0. So the first position from the right is not index 0, it's index -1. String slicing. See what this does. A0:4. That gave me MOUN down here. That's the first 4 letters of the string. Very important notes, right? Really nitpicky things. That gave me index 0, gives indexes 0, 1, 2, and 3, because index 3 is the letter N, if you're paying attention. Index 4 was the letter T. It does not include the last number in the slice. Here's a challenge. What is this going to do? I challenge you to try to figure this out before you run it, so I think you should pause the video, maybe even write down the word mountains and see if you can figure it out. And then if you go ahead and unpause it, I will go ahead and run the command now, and hopefully you got it right. It prints out the letter N. So what did it do? Well, what I'm going to do first, just to figure this out, is I'm going to stop again, put a breakpoint there, and I'm going to go back. I'm going to get rid of the index 2 and just see what the slice 1 through 5 is. So let's rerun this. And the slice 1 through 5, oops, I forgot to clear that earlier breakpoint, so we'll keep going here. Slice 1 through 5 outputs OUNT. So then when I add the brackets 2 right there, what I'm really doing is noting that this chunk of code right here represents the string OUNT, and then I want to take index 2 from that string. Now if you're not being careful, you're probably saying, okay, it's going to print a U. Well, no, the U is not index 2 in that string, that's index 1, because remember it starts at 0. Index 2 is probably going to print an N. I'm going to restart again. Pop down there, run it. Yep, it printed out an N just like I expected. Okay. Printing one index of a slice of a string. You can string up, no pun intended, these multiple operations. You can even do it with string literals. Right? I said print a chunk of a string literal 2 through 7. What it did is it said, okay, this is a string. Now let's take indexes 2 through 7 and print that out. Well, here's index 0. Then comes 1. Here's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And remember, it does not print 7, so the extra space afterward is not in this output. Slice of a string. That's called a string literal, where you actually just type the string with quotes instead of using a variable to represent the string. What does it do if you don't use an ending index for a slice? Let's just say we say print A and do a slice of 3 through, but we don't specify the end. Then it gives me 3 through the end. It gives me ntons. If I do A through 3, as you might expect, it gives you the beginning. A slice from index 3 through the end, right? And then this was a slice from beginning to index 3, okay? Again, I can't hammer this enough. This is not indices 1, 2, and 3. This is index 0 is the M, index 1 is the O, and index U is the 2. Sorry, U is index 2, so it does not print index 3. Let's see what this does. Here we've got a string plus another string plus another string plus another string plus another string. Hit the run here. That did mountains, 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 but remember up ahead when we concatenated strings, it just strung them up in a line? You notice that here they're all going on new lines? What if I change this and double up on these \n's? What does that do? Go ahead and rerun this. Forgot to change my breakpoint again. I think I'm going to use the quick rerun button here. There we go. Look at that. Added 2 spaces between each mountains. If I do it again, you can guess. Okay, I'm going to move my breakpoint so it automatically runs even lower. Look at my console. Now there are 2 spaces between each mountains. It looks like \n is the way that you put an enter key into a string. That's called a new line character. Okay. So we're doing 2 things here. We're doing string concatenation. We did that in a previous lesson with the plus. And using the new line character \n. So if you ever need to do that in a string, that's how you do it. Alrighty, last one. For this next one to work, you need to click into the Python shell area, then type your username and hit enter. So I will run this next step. It says user equals input. What's your username? So it prints out the string that's as an argument to input, And what I'm noticing here is that the line, even though I clicked go to the next line, it did not go to the next line of the code. It's stuck on line 51. And you'll notice that all my stepping buttons are blanked out. That's because when you use the input function, Python is waiting for user input. So what I'm saying in this comment here is that you got to click down into the console, and you can see the cursor blinking there. I have to put in my username, let's say M. Stockinger, and I will hit enter, and now it went to line 52. And you'll notice in the debugger, the inline debugging, it shows that a new variable was created, USR, and it has the value of M. Stockinger. Finally, when I do the last step, it prints it back out. Your username is M. Stockinger. What I did there, as you can see, is I got user input and I stored that input into a variable so that I could use it later. That's a really powerful thing to do in Python programming. You'll be using that quite a lot. Next video will be part 2 of this assignment. Hope that all of this made perfect sense.